Hello and welcome to From the BO End. This is the recording going out before our final game of the season at home to Nottingham Forest. And we're already relegated, but we're not stopping talking about it. Still plenty to discuss. There's plenty going on around Turf Moor. I'm Simon Evans, and joining me is Chris Borden, Paul Woodhouse, and Justin Connolly. And let's get into it. So, Nottingham Forest at home. The game we'd sort of hoped was going to be the one where we could just overtake Forest at the final corner of the season. It's not going to happen, of course, but there will be plenty of interest in this game, not least because it's probably the final time we're going to see quite a number of Clarets. Let's start off with Woody. We never start off with Woody. Let's start off with Woody. There is going to be a few farewells, aren't there? It could be quite an emotional occasion for some of those who are there at Turf Moor, on and off the field.
Yeah, and hopefully, if there are farewells to be had, we actually have them. You know, it's not just simply a case that they sit there on the bench and we wonder, you know, if J-Rod's off, if all, you know, if various folks are off, and it could be quite a few, and we know probably who they are. Then it would be nice to have a send off at least, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chris, we said this in a tweet that we put out on the thing, saying, you know, Jay in particular, but then some other people rightly pointed out how much service Jack Cork's given to the club. You could make the same case for Johan Berg Gudmundsson if he's not staying. We don't know that yet. There are some whispers that Gudmundsson might have that +1 option. Charlie Taylor's future as well. But, you know, Jay in particular struck me, obviously, in being from Burnley and having played for the club for a number of years in two different spells, homegrown player. It would be a shame if he just ended his career in the way we've seen recently with other players, you know, who ended their service and we found out a few days after the final game of the season. So, can you shed any light on that? Any ideas what's going on with Jay? We've tried to find out a bit, haven't we? But
well, back in the day, I'd have been trying to find out, but no, I'm too busy working, to be brutally honest. But no, it's. I was looking at. Pates had put a picture up on Facebook of his. I mean, if you remember, he wasn't involved in the squad that day, and he came out with his Armani jeans cap on and got to say goodbye to the Burnley fans. And those players, you know, certainly, you know, the ones if they are going, all of them, you know, like we say, we don't know with Johan, etc. But they deserve absolutely, you know, for the fans to bring the roof down for them, especially Jay. I mean, everyone from Burnley will have watched his dad play, you know, for Paddy and Burnley United, etc. And he still scored one of the best goals I ever saw in a West Lancashire League final over at Leyland. But it just, when he was emerging, I think everyone hoped he'd get a shot, and I think everyone thought he was too small. Steve Cottrell took a chance, gave him his head as such, and I can always remember him stealing the ball off Steve Jones in a pre-season game at Wrexham and tucking that away and just showing his confidence and authority. And I watched him sing his induction song on tour after he'd joined the first team squad as a fully fledged pro.
What was the song, Chris?
stood on his stool singing "High" by the Lighthouse Family in his inimitable accent. It was
That sounds awful.
But Jay likes his tunes. To be fair, he does like the Smiths, etc., doesn't he? But but we said him become. He had to bide his time under Owen Coyle and blah blah blah. But we seen him become, what was at the time a record sale, and I think everyone hoped he'd return, and he has returned, and he's had some magic moments with us still. Like who can ever forget that goal at Old Trafford, for example? But he's one short of 250 appearances for the club, and I'm just that way. I'm a romantic. He has to make his 250th appearance, and he has to be able to say goodbye to to those who supported him over many, many years.
Yeah, I mean, if he is going, you want the lap of honour at the end or something like that, don't you? You want him. I wouldn't like to see him going out the way you just described with Pates. With him just being on the sides of it a bit at the end, because he's still capable of coming on. Even if he comes on with 20 minutes to go, what a way to end that'd be. To get the winning goal in his 250th appearance. If he is leaving, I mean, we don't know. We've tried to find out, and I don't know what harm it would have done the club to actually make these things clear before the game. Then you're not sat there wondering, because we know what will happen on Monday if they don't put out a statement or something on Friday. People are going to be going, "Oh, the way he clapped to the stand looks like he's going to me," and people start analysing body language and so on. Justin, your thoughts on J-Rod for the moment?
Yeah, I think it would be a shame if he didn't get a proper send off. 249 games is a healthy career. I'm kind of surprised it's that many, because obviously he spent his peak years away from the club, didn't he? Elsewhere, he sort of rose to prominence at Burnley and then went elsewhere. He suffered that really bad injury, didn't he? Just when he looked like he might be sort of breaking into the England team, and he kind of. I don't know whether he was quite the same after that, but there's a compilation of his goals on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it, but like it's the variety in it, is extraordinary. He's a complete striker.
Pinned at the top of our Twitter account if anyone wants to
really
to watch it. Yeah,
that must be where I've seen it then.
There you go.
Yeah, so a great player. Great. I mean, I think it's special because he's from Burnley, isn't it? And he's the fans all know that, and the fans all love that, and we haven't had that many players over the years who've come from the town who've represented us. So I mean, I hope it's not the end of him. I think he can. I think he probably can still do that sort of Barnesy role that we had last year in the Championship. I think with us dropping down a level, I don't see any harm in us keeping him on for another season, but. The management at the moment don't seem to like him very much. He hasn't played that much this season, even though there were moments when I thought, he could have come in and done a really good job for us.
Yeah, I agree. It does feel like that. Yeah, just interesting one you just raised there. Like people from Burnley or the surrounds who've played for the club. There really isn't that many, is there? I mean, John Mullin would be one. Chris, I mean, Richard Chappell was Sideburn, weren't he? Really?
Chappie was an Aki lad, yeah. I think John was born in Bury, wasn't he? John Mullin, but obviously, I think did he go to St Ted's? I can't remember. But obviously, Ollie Norwood was a St Ted's kid and was considered good enough for Manchester United to pick him up. Chris Casper before him. There was a batch of the St Ted's lot that won the English schools that all signed for Blackburn that never really kicked on, that group. There's a couple still milling around, like Chorley and Radcliffe and clubs like that. But it's, the Hapton Hitmen, I mean, Gareth Seddon, who come through at Bury and people like that. But you imagine an area that loves its football and loves its grassroots football as well.
Yeah,
would produce more.
I remember there was a lad playing around the time that we were playing for like High Boys. Might have been a bit before actually, when I was with during my glory years at Briarfield Celtic. He was a lad called John Mortimer, if I remember, and he went to Manchester United at like 14 or 15, but he was one of those lads. You remember him, Woody?
Yeah.
He was built like a man at 14, weren't he?
Yeah, he was a brick shit house, yeah.
He just ran through. He could play football. He just ran through teams, and we were all convinced, that lad's going to be that lad will be like a star. And I don't think he made it. And we played with a lad who a lot of people thought was a lad called Ian Pickup, who I think he became a policeman. But at school, Ian Pickup was a fabulous footballer. I think he had trials with Bury and didn't make it. Such massive gulfs, aren't there, between the levels where you think people are like really good footballers and don't make it. I mean, you could keep going on through the amateur ranks of players who come through Burnley League and Pendle League. Neville Roscoe, who played with Kiko Rodriguez in that famous Vale Weavers Sunday League team. That's the only time I played against Kiko. Tried to mark him in that game. He was a proper centre forward, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the other players leaving, Jack Cork deserves a mention, doesn't he, really, as well? I mean, we always seemed, it became almost a cliche that, we looked a better side whenever Cork was in it during the Dyche era. I mean, a player who came in, if I'm right in thinking, with Brian Laws, would that be right? Yeah.
Took him on loan from Chelsea, in January 2010. Yeah, 19.
I mean, a lovely footballer, a classy footballer. Woody, you give us some appreciation of Jack Cork.
He was one of those at the time that felt too good for us, didn't he? He just seemed a little bit. He seemed to have a better engine than everybody else. He seemed to have a better touch than everybody else, and he just stood out in that side. And you kind of felt that we might not see the likes of that type of footballer at Burnley should that season, go awry. But we had him another couple of times, and we've still got him now. So, and I think it's testimony to how we've grown as a club, and as to how long he's stopped and probably a good player he is, even though his legs might have gone a little bit, could probably still do a job down in the Championship at some point, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that struck me about Cork, for me, was just his calmness on the ball. We watched so many years of lower division football at Burnley and even in the Championship where players didn't look calm and confident on the ball, and he just exuded that. But a lot of other qualities as well, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he was a real cornerstone of that Dyche side that established itself as a proper competitive Premier League team, wasn't it? I mean, a lot of people talk about Tarkowski and me, and one of the great goalkeepers that were sat behind them, but in front of them, Jack Cork's one of those players who was able to be in the right place at the right time, and I think that's why he was so unflappable, because you get these players, don't you, just seem to find the space and just seem to sit there and just seem to know where to be at the right time. Sometimes they're a bit unsung, aren't they? Sometimes they don't get the plaudits that they deserve because the work they do isn't that flashy. But in order for the flashy players to do their bit, you have to have players like Jack Cork. And I think he's been fantastic for us. I mean, if you look at the number of Premier League games he's got under his belt, it's a phenomenal number. Most of his career is playing Premier League football. If not for us, for Swansea, for Southampton, he had a spell there. And that we didn't utilise that experience in this Premier League campaign is a bit of a disgrace. I think we could have got a lot more out of him this season. Maybe he hasn't quite. He was never particularly quick, was he? But
never, no.
But I think that experience that he had and that ability that he's got to read the game and know where to be, could have helped stabilise the side a little bit. And if you've got a player like that with so many caps in the Premier League under the belt, it's a criminal waste when you don't have him helping the other players around him on the pitch. He could have been that stabilising, calming influence over the course of this season. I think that's part of the reason that jettisoning of that sort of Premier League experience that we still had at the club, I think, has cost us dearly this season.
Yeah, I mean, you can just you look at those stats about how many points we lost from winning positions, and you think if you're trying to manage a game when you've got a lead, Jack Cork's just absolutely perfect for that. The amount of times he was integral to Burnley winning games 1-0 under Sean Dyche, where they kept the ball, they didn't give the ball, very rarely gave it away in a bad position either. For a deep lying central midfielder whose first touch could possibly hand the opposition a decisive moment. I mean, Chris as well, he was somebody who seemed to get put in front of the media quite a bit now as well. What was he like to deal with from your point of view covering the team?
Just a diamond, absolute diamond of a fella. Loved him to pieces. But you can tell some players, whether they've had an upbringing at a Manchester United or a City or a Chelsea, or etc. There's a certain standard that they arrive with, and he'd been at Chelsea and he arrived with that standard. But also the fact his dad had a fine career as well at top level, so he knew what it was all about basically. But just look at his CV with Burnley. Just legend doesn't go far enough. He's helped Burnley get into Europe. He's scored and played in Europe. The winner against Istanbul, which is a fabulous goal. He's helped Burnley with derbies against Blackburn, which was unthinkable years ago. He got the winner. He scored in the header, the opener in the cup tie 2017. Then obviously came on when Adam Wharton was bossing the game last year at Ewood Park, and came on and silenced Adam Wharton, changed the flow of the game. Instigated the move that led to Manuel Benson's winner. And he might have had one of the briefest England careers of all time, but he won an England cap with Burnley and things like that. He just absolute hero.
Should have won more than one, I think.
Yeah,
he really
should.
I mean, I know that's Burnley fan talk, but I think really you look at the way Southgate set that team up as well, and until he found that Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips pairing in midfield, they were crying out for someone like Cork. He was running around trying to get Milner to come back and persuade him out of retirement from international duty and stuff. Cork would have been, but I think he was one of several players who were part of Sean's team who were on the fringes of the England side, and I think paid the price for Southgate not liking Burnley, really, not liking the way we played.
How many of those? Remember how many? I speak about the goal against Istanbul, which is magic finish, but how many of these diving headers? The one at Deepdale, which was another magic moment. Right in front of a full bank of away fans at Deepdale, full tilt diving. The one at Watford, where we won at Watford, and we thought, hang on, we're going to stay up here. A couple of years ago, and in a ridiculous run of goals, like something about 10 out of his first 12 goals were headers. Just like he used to arrive late and just. He's got one against his Swansea on the opening day, I remember, a good few years ago. But just on and off the pitch, just absolute diamond of a fella. And I'll be gutted. He's obviously his time's up at Burnley, but I hope we see him come back, many a time down the years, because he deserves, proper welcome, proper sending off, etc. Down, in 5-10 years to come, wherever it is.
Yeah, I think, remember that episode we did where we talked about our favourite Burnley 11s and went through those players. And I think we're talking about players here now, particularly Cork and Rodriguez, but I think, you could put Taylor and Goodmanson in this category as well, of players who in 10 years' time will be looked back on with the same affection that people had for people like Peter Noble, Leighton James and so on that we've talked about in the past. And maybe we can talk about Goodmanson when we know a bit more, and maybe next week about whether he's staying or not. But he's a player I've always thought was underrated by a lot of Burnley fans. Charlie Taylor, if this is his last game, it will be the weirdest exit after what's gone on this season. Being ignored at the start of the campaign for no good reason whatsoever, and then coming back. And really, if he hadn't have been around to come back, if he'd have gone off somewhere before deadline last time, I wonder how many points we'd have had with a makeshift left back. For as bad as we've been, at least Charlie Taylor's put in his usual, always reliable, dependable performances there, really. let's just quickly, before we move on, I mean, other players will be playing at the Turf Moor for the final time as well, who we have no idea who they will be, but there's bound to be some players departing. I mean, it would be a surprise if the team that plays this weekend all come back, apart from the ones who are out of contract. I mean, anyone that have any feelings about that, who might be going, or who they particularly don't want to go, or or would really like to see leave, for that matter, Woody?
I think the ones who are most likely to go are the ones that you obviously want to stay. You know, the likes of Berger will be off, arguably, like a shot. Dependent on the rumours as to what's going on with VK, how many of them would have been sticking around for him, how many would be going, etc. I'd be kind of sad to see Muric go as well, but you can see if there's a bid for anybody that arguably they'll wind up going. And we could see quite a few last performances, couldn't we, this weekend?
I mean, you wonder what's going to happen. Is this, the final farewell for Mike Trezor? I mean, it's a weird situation, isn't it? I mean, we don't know for 100%, but all the reports suggested that we'd bought him on loan with an obligation, not an option, an obligation to buy him for quite a bit of money. But he's had zero impact, really. I mean, there must be a better player there than what we've seen. I can't believe this is all he's capable of. But after a year like he's had, Justin, I mean, would you be surprised to see Mike Trezor at Turf Moor next season?
No, I wouldn't be surprised at all, because I do. I mean, that's what they said at the start, wasn't it? We signed him on loan with the obligation to buy him at the end of the season. I mean, you would hope, fingers crossed, that there's a clause in there that says unless we get relegated, in which case he has to go back from where he came from. But I'm a bit like you on that. I sort of think, well, he's had a poor season. He's not the only one, is he? He's failed to make an impact, but he's not the only one, is he? And we had such high hopes for him when he arrived. I think what you've got to do in this scenario is when the new season starts, everyone's got a clean slate, haven't they? He could easily turn things around with a good season in the Championship for us. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's still here next season. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes. I wouldn't be surprised if I can't name a single player that I expect to either stay or go, because it's so unpredictable, isn't it? As it has been the last two summers. Obviously, if you look at the first team now, even now, we've got quite a number of loan players in there, haven't we, whose contract situation is not exactly crystal clear. What happens is, I mean, I think Esteve, they said he's going to be here. He's on loan, but I think they've said he's going to be here next season, come what may. What about, there's Brun Larsen, there's Assignon, obviously Fofana's going to go back. All these, there's quite a number of players who are on loan whose situation isn't clear. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to second guess what's going to happen. I mean, obviously we don't know what's going to happen on the management front yet. We're probably going to talk about that in a minute, but everything's up in the air when it comes to close season at Burnley, as we've seen over the last two seasons. It's unpredictable. I know who I'd like to stay and who I'd like to see go. I find it difficult to believe that there's a lot of revenue in the squad, but I think if there are offers for the likes of Berger that Woody mentioned, we're going to have to take them whatever they are. We're probably not going to get as much for them as they're worth, given our situation. But everybody's got a price tag, and I think when the offers come in, it's going to be very difficult to turn them down.
Yeah, although on the other hand, and Chris, I don't know what your thoughts are on this one, but I just have a feeling this might be another quiet window in terms of big money spending. It just feels like in the game at the moment, especially the English game, there's all the talk about, financial fair play or sustainability and so on, and clubs sort of watching what they can spend and stuff. You just get the feeling that they're not going to go. I might be completely wrong with this, but I just have a feeling that there might not be as much going on as people might expect.
Well, so I read an article earlier today that suggested if Leeds aren't promoted, and they're obviously they're playing. Are they playing tonight? I believe as we speak.
Yeah, they are.
They'd have to get shut of £100 million worth of talent if they're not back in the Premier League. So you don't know. I think we expected a quiet window a couple of years ago, and then all hell broke loose, didn't it? And Chelsea ended up signing every player under 21 under the sun for £1 billion, and you just don't know where it all sits, do you? How they're creative accounting and putting them on 25-year contracts to spin it all out.
We don't know, do we? We don't.
But we've got such a massive squad, haven't we? We've got to get rid of some players.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's what happens with Wout Francois Maria Weghorst.
Bring him home.
I'm looking at the first team squad that's on the Clarets website, and it goes up to the professional players, and this is not including all the kids either, and it gets up to 49, including players who are out on loan. It's incredible. 49, including, your players like one or two of those have got contracts up as well. Dara Costello, who's been at Dundee, his contract is up. Owen Dodgson's got another year. Peacock Farrell, remember him, the goalkeeper? We've got a possible option for him. Chris
is waving goodbye at all these players.
He'll be on his back. No, well, Dodgson's one of those that he's had a couple of loan spells. He's been at Rochdale and at Barnsley, and now he's at Dundee. And he seems to be one who's making the sort of step. I don't know if you watched during the week. They provided. They led it against Rangers. Dundee, who scored twice, and he created both goals with fabulous balls. So you wonder whether he might get a shot at championship level at left back. He might be the Taylor replacement. You just don't know. See, had a pre-season with the first team last year, scored the goal at Benfica, etc. But maybe he comes back and he goes again. We'll have to see. But Costello. It seems incredible that he started last season at Huddersfield, obviously, didn't he? Playing as one of the only forwards we had, and worked hard enough. And I think people thought there was a lot of potential there. But again, he's had the loan experiences, and I don't think he did particularly great at Bradford, and is it St Johnstone? He's been at Dundee, and he's struggling to get a kick at the moment there. So I'd be surprised if he's kept on, in all honesty. But as if you Peacock Farrell's out, they're not going to take the option up unless they want to try and get a few quid for him, maybe. But I say we're already overloaded with goalkeepers anyway, aren't we? So
at the moment, yeah. And of course, we'll leave the Wout Weghorst discussion to the annual Wout Weghorst discussion for another time. The big rumours are flying around, of course, about Vincent Kompany, despite the fact nothing has been said by Kompany or the club that would indicate that he's not going to be in charge. In fact, everything's been said that would indicate that he is going to be in charge. He said already that next season began last week, I think. So, I think
he's already.
But we have seen stories coming out on some, rather, let's say, fringe football news websites suggesting that the Kompany might be on his way because other clubs might want him. Not that Burnley are going to sack him. There's no question about that. And of course, Sasha Tavaleri tweeted about that last week and has tweeted about it again today as we record this, suggesting that if some options come up for him at somewhere like Brighton or Brentford, then Burnley are looking already at who their replacements might be, and the names being floated around so far are Mark Robbins of Coventry City and Ashley Cole, who's been assistant to Wayne Rooney in various roles. What do we make of all this, Woody? I mean, it's rumours flying around, but what do we give any credibility to this at all?
Like you said, because of where they've come from and who's being mentioned, you'd like to think it's bollocks, and you also hope it's bollocks. Yes, Mark Robbins doesn't necessarily fill you with the joys of spring, does he? So, but again, if you were, Vincent, is it a good time to go? Is it a bad time to go for him within his career? If he gets somebody, like a Brighton sniffing around, would you argue that it would be a very good move for him, wouldn't it? Because there is that thing. Does he want to have a relegation and then not bring them back up? It's one thing saying, yeah, he goes down and brings us back up. What if he doesn't bring us back up? Then his star really is starting to wane quite considerably, isn't it?
Good point.
Yeah. So I don't know. I at this present moment in time, I wouldn't like to see him go. I'd rather he stuck out this project for the foreseeable future. But 10 games in and he's had a bit of a shit house, then things will get a little bit unpleasant.
I mean, he's an ambitious guy, isn't he, Justin?
Well,
He's somebody who clearly wants to go on. Burnley is a stepping stone for him, whether we like it or not, to be phrased in those terms, but he obviously is. I mean, so either he gets sacked or he's going to go of his own will at some time. But would you think in his mind that this would seem a good moment to do it if that option came up?
Depends what the opportunity is, doesn't it? Really, if it's like a Brighton, then I don't see why he wouldn't want to jump at that. There's they've got over that hump, haven't they? And there's some sort of stability there. The thing that makes me think that he probably want to stay is the amount of control that he clearly has over what he does at Turf Moor. I think I think what Vincent wants, Vincent gets at Turf Moor, and I can't see him getting that level of control elsewhere. And I also feel like he's got a little bit of unfinished business in the sense that he'll consider this season a bit of a stain on his reputation, and he'll want to put that right. Nobody wants to leave a club on a downer, do they? Even if they do it voluntarily, without an opportunity to put that right. And by the same token, I find it difficult to believe that a Premier League club would take a punt on him, given what's happened this season. I mean, he's basically taken a side that romped the Championship, spent tens of millions of pounds on it, and then mistake after mistake has seen that side relegated. I can't. It's hard to see anybody who knows what they're doing, who's got a Premier League manager's role vacant, look at Vincent Kompany and see that as the solution to that particular problem at the moment. In the future maybe, but at the moment I think his stock must be pretty low given what's happened this season, mustn't it? I mean, it's very hard to lay the blame for what's happened this season on the pitch anywhere but at his door, really, given the circumstances. Yeah. So why would somebody take a punt on that, especially someone like a club like Brighton or even Brentford, which is one of the other ones that was mentioned?
I'll tell you why they would, because he's got a big name, and it's in football. We see it time and time again. Clubs are dazzled by big names and by the chance to look ambitious.
Not Brighton or Brentford though. They'll identify somebody who's going to follow that philosophy that they've already developed, and I'm not sure that I'm not sure that those kind of people will go for the big name.
What do you think, Chris? Is this maybe a company? Wishful thinking from people around Kompany, hoping he gets an offer from somewhere like Brighton?
Well, the speculations come from somewhere, isn't it? Sasha's not plucked it out of thin air. And but you look at, I mean, can you think of the last manager to get relegated and keep it, move to another club in the Premier League? Must be Roberto Martinez, wasn't it? When Wigan went down and he got the Everton job,
Is that how he
puzzled
pronounced
me
it?
then.
Roberto.
Rob, that's how that fella that broke his leg in the cup final apparently pronounces it. Roberto. But no, that was baffling.
Whatever happened to him? Whatever happened to Roberto? He never did anything in the game, did
he? He's getting jobs left, right, and centre, isn't he? But it's, I don't know. I'd be again, like Justin said, I'd be baffled if like a Brentford or a Brighton, or everything seems to be all sort of run through the algorithms and this, that. They won't be cowed by a big name. They'll pluck someone out of obscurity from like someone we've never heard of. It's all sort of like ifs and buts. What the story said? If Thomas Frank goes to Manchester United, and you're like, what? Really? No, I'm not dismissing Thomas Frank, who's done a fabulous job, but I would imagine Manchester United will set the sights higher than that. I don't know. You look at like Bayern Munich can't land a manager for love nor money, and they're on about Tuchel staying put. So maybe there's a dearth of that level of manager that maybe United stay with Ten Hag. I don't know, but it all seems are the deck chairs going to move around as much as we think in that respect? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. I mean, company's obviously not said anything to suggest it, and of course he wouldn't do. But the good news is that Burnley, according to Sasha, are already working and looking in just in case something happens to have some options available to them, which they patently didn't have when they sacked Sean Dyche last time we got relegated from the Premier League and ended the season with Mike Jackson, which they tried to pretend was some sort of strategy, but obviously wasn't. He was placed in charge of the team temporarily. But the good news on that front is if they are searching around, Jesse Marsh, the former Leeds United manager, who is the most obvious Alan Pace ALK appointment that exists on planet Earth, has just taken the job as Canada's national team manager. So he's out of the picture for a while, thankfully.
Oh, thank God for that.
It'll only be good news this week.
It is. Moving along, story this morning from our friend of the pod, another friend of the pod, about in Jottimere, and it was a story about the Burnley's sponsors, shirt sponsors, BK8. Now, if we remember, of course, our friend Philippe Auclair, who I'm referring to, he did a big story and came on the podcast talking about what a shady company BK8 were and how Premier League clubs shouldn't have anything to do with them. He's done more digging, and his latest report that we've shared says he reveals links to a notorious Cambodian cybercrime and human trafficking compound known as Victory Paradise, which is linked to all kinds of cyber slavery activities. Then he says that the addresses match up and that this betting company's based in the same complex. I think that's basically the link there. But in any case, he goes over quite a lot of things about that firm yet again. Woody, what do we make of all this? With bearing in mind the editing that Greaves had to do after your comments last time. But what do I mean? It was pretty much clear from what Philippe told us that this wasn't a wholesome brand to be associated with, wasn't it?
Yes. And you would think that anybody worth their salt within business would have done their due diligence. And I find it astonishing that we didn't do our due diligence, because other people were doing their due diligence and understood that there was something slightly shady going on. And I know their tenure is supposed to be finished at the end of this season, but I still don't think it excuses that we obviously let these folks through as sponsors, to put it kindly. And I'd like to make sure that we're doing that kind of due diligence again, because it's not just about the betting thing. I know a lot of people have spoken about gambling, and that's one issue. But once you start going into the realm of these aren't just dodgy buggers, these are in the realms of like human trafficking, etc., etc. This is something that you don't want to be associated with in any which way, shape, or form. And it's quite simply horrific, really. You know.
I mean, to be honest, if you think about it, if you're one of those poor people who have had their passports taken off them and are stuck in a dark room working God knows how many hours for peanuts for these cyber operators, and you know, presuming that everything's in Philippe's report is accurate and have no reason to believe it wouldn't be, he's a fine reporter. Imagine being one of those people and then someone puts the TV on and there's a Premier League match and there's a Burnley wearing the branding of these people who took your passports off you and put you in this situation. I mean, it's pretty awful, I think. I mean, I don't know. Chris, Justin?
Well, to say someone posted earlier, there's that huge posters in the international departures area in Phnom Penh. So people are seeing Burnley. Obviously, so they might catch the logo if they watch Burnley in the Premier League. But if you're in and out of the airport, Cambodia, you're seeing like a huge advertisement for Burnley and Villa. To be fair, and it's terrifying, really. It really is. Well, it's just distasteful, and it's. I think Philippe said he didn't get a comment from either Villa or Burnley, which again is concerning. And it needs clarifying because we can't have Burnley linked with characters like this. It's no good for the name.
I mean, surely you put out a statement then if that's they've had all year to work out whether those reports were true or not. They've not come out at any point and said this is outrageous and scurrilous stuff. Alan Pearce actually replied to JD Robbo, a Burnley fan who'd raised questions just about the gambling aspect and said, yeah, I share your concerns. It's something we're looking into. Well, he's had a year to look into this extremely shady Asian betting company and hasn't done anything about it. He's been perfectly happy, it seems, for the club to be associated with this firm. And I just find it unbelievable for somebody who can't wait to talk about shared values and synergies when we're talking about a shirt manufacturer, but doesn't seem to see that there's any issue around values. I mean, I don't know, Justin?
No, I think you're absolutely right. It all seems very murky, very shady, very unsavory in every way. But I think I think the wider picture is it's a symptom, isn't it, of football finance. It's like, the problems that clubs have attracting sponsorship mean that when you're looking at what you're going to do at the start of the season and you've got a big hole to fill financially and you get this massive offer from a betting company from Southeast Asia, and you think, how can you turn that down? How can you, if you're running a business, and the calculation will be how much do Burnley fans really care about this if, we get the cash in and we do, what we're supposed to do on the pitch. That is the big problem. The big problem is it all comes from the sort of lack of competitiveness in the Premier League. The fact that you have to grasp at cash from the likes of these people if you're going to even have a chance at being competitive in the Premier League shows, I think, in the wider picture, just how wrong we've got it in football, just how wrong things have become. That this is a part of the only way you can do it, and B, that it's allowed, that it's even possible. I know it won't be soon. These kinds of deals won't be possible. I'm not sure whether it's next season or the season after that. Shirt sponsored betting, but it's the betting that they object to, isn't it? Not the people trafficking, which is kind of again indicative of the wider problem. We don't seem to care where the money comes from.
It hasn't been made competitive, though, has it? That's the point. You know what I mean? We haven't been competitive, but we haven't been competitive despite the fact that we've bitten a hand off these shady characters. We haven't been competitive. So, where does that leave you at the end of the day? It leaves you thinking, something's gone badly wrong somewhere, and we need to sort of
take a step back and look at how everything's structured and how it all works. If we want a competitive Premier League, then issues like this have got to be addressed and things have got to change.
I must admit, I totally agree, and I must admit, I've been sceptical towards the idea of a football regulator for a long time, because I think that mission creep with these kind of regulatory bodies is a real issue, and you'd end up with politicians showboating around the price of pies at their club and wasting time. I mean, anyone who's watched the Department of Culture, Media and Sport subcommittee meetings that unfortunately I had to do in my previous job, and watching MPs ask questions of people like Richard Masters of the Premier League, you watch it and you just think they haven't even done the basic homework, these MPs, about how football clubs are run or anything. They're asking totally the wrong questions just to get a soundbite because they know it's being streamed and it's going to get picked up by the media. And I thought an independent regulator is just going to be that times 10. But the more you look at the picture of the Premier League, with the money flowing into it from foreign states, with the lack of competitive balance in it, with the characters that are allowed to wander in, with leverage takeovers that are allowed to happen where clubs get put into massive debt because of the way a deal has been structured to the benefit of the new owners and so on. I'm talking about Manchester United and the Glazers, obviously. You look at it and you think, a lot needs sorting out. A lot needs sorting out. And I don't, the danger is that the big English clubs aren't as competitive in the Champions League if they have more restrictions paid on them and they do more to help lower division clubs and so on. I actually don't care about that anymore, to be honest. I'm just a bit sick about the way football's going with all the over corporate commercialization and also stuff that's, borderline morally questionable. So maybe it is time for a regulator. I don't know. I'm open to that idea now. I mean, one thing that we'll just finish on. Well, I don't know. I mean, is that? Let's finish on that point. Is this independent regulator going to make the Premier League a more pleasant place to be for fans of clubs like Burnley's? Chris?
Well, talking about making the Premier League more competitive in Europe, and we're looking at a season where Bayern Munich have bettered our efforts, and Leverkusen likewise in the Europa League. But I mean, that swings and roundabouts at that level. But in terms of a regulator, I just don't. I mean, where do you even begin? Like I say, you've the shirt sponsorships. We've got Manchester City and their 115 charges. We've got Forest and Everton. You Leicester coming up. You've Chelsea. It's just an almighty mess, really. You don't know where it starts, where it ends. Really, it's how you dress up some of these sponsorship deals, and a bit of it's meant to use the French creative accounting again. Certain things have been dressed up to be more than they're clearly worth, etc. But whoever gets that post has got an almighty job on their hands to even scratch the surface of what's going on. The horse is bolted in terms of like reining in, the big six and etc. And there will come a time where we just sort of say, right, you crack on with your European Super League, and we'll play out the Premier League with whoever's left, sort of thing.
I've heard a lot of people say that. I mean, Woody, we're saying goodbye to the Premier League this weekend. Are you, apart from the fact that we can watch Burnley very easily on television every weekend, and it's nice to see Burnley playing with the big boys and stuff, are you sad to be leaving the Premier League, or are you got fed up with it?
It's everybody from the smaller clubs says exactly the same, don't they? We wind up being whipping boys, and we're just essentially making up numbers. Nothing's particularly competitive apart from a handful of games. If you're lucky, you may get a rogue result. VAR's a load of bollocks. Pies are too expensive, and this season in particular just seems hollow, shallow, and I don't think I would miss it. And the point is, why are you playing in a lower division? What's the goal? It's to get to the Premiership. And if it's shit, if it's a shit product and it's no fun being there, then football's broken. in a lot of respects, and we shouldn't be saying it. That's the point. We shouldn't be saying this. We should want to be in the Premier League. We shouldn't be looking forward to going into the Championship because it's more competitive and we have more fun and the football's better. That's ridiculous. And that's on the Premiership.
Justin?
Yeah, I agree with that. We shouldn't be saying that we don't want to be in the Premier League, but VAR is a big reason for me. I think Wolves hit the nail on the head with their motion to abandon VAR in the Premier League when they said that it's become a barrier between football and the fans. Yeah. And that's so true. That's so true, especially at the games. When you're at the game and there's, a goal goes in, you never quite know whether to celebrate. When a penalty is given, you never quite know whether, and that it's really taken the edge off the whole thing. And we spent so much time talking about VAR this season. It seems to have failed to sort of solve any of the problems that it was set up to solve, and just introduced a load more problems. But I think that's sort of really symptomatic of what's wrong with the Premier League. It's a fucking circus, isn't it? It's a circus, and all these elements, like the VAR controversies, the Premier League think add value to it, make it more entertaining. Do you know what I mean? It's like, wow, we've got all these people talking about, and then you get even the show on Sky where they talk about the VAR issues, and oh, amazing! They've released the audio from the VAR room, and we talk about this more than we talk about the actual football. Which, let's be honest, I've been to a lot of games this season. It's not been entertaining. It's been sort of the repetitive sort of misery of the whole process this season has been really quite depressing and quite dull and quite boring as well. That's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to the end of the season. How many times this season have we talked about the same things after each game? The same thing. We talk about VAR. We talk about, all that stuff. I want to talk about something different, and that we're about to enter a phase where we're looking at something different. So yeah, I think, I read a story this morning which made me laugh, that how the Premier League officials have sort of issued a sigh of relief that this year's title race has been more competitive than it's ever been before. It's actually going to go down to the last game of the season, where the team that's won it for the last 3 seasons is probably going to win it again. And they'll probably win it again next season because they're bankrolled by this, massive well of cash. That
because they fucking cheats.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, but Pep was saying, wasn't he? Oh, it's not about money. If it was all about money, it'd just be United would be up there, and all these other teams that have spent a lot of money would be up there. The point is about City is it's not all about the money, but they could not have done it without the money, could they?
Yeah,
they could not have done it without the money. Pep himself, it would not be there were it not for the money. Haaland, De Bruyne, almost the entire side would not be there were it not for the money. And that's where we've gone wrong, isn't it? That's where we've gone wrong. There's no checks and balances against that kind of cheating, which is, as Woody says, it is cheating. It's buying it. It's saying, and all these other clubs at the bottom, like us, you enter a competition at the start of the season with absolutely zero expectation that you're going to be competitive. Never mind that you've got a chance of winning it. How many teams start each Premier League season thinking, we might win it? Manchester United this season probably didn't expect to be anywhere near winning it. Arsenal,
no, of course not.
And Manchester United arguably are one of the biggest clubs in the world. They can't even be competitive in the Premier League. And I accept that it's not all about the money. It's about decision making. It's about all that sort of stuff. But we've gone wrong somewhere with this sort of sense that, like there's about 3-4 divisions within the Premier League, isn't there?
Yeah.
And we over the course of this season, we've gone into games with the top 6 or even those, mid-ranking sides and sort of said, every season we sometimes we go to Old Trafford and win. Sometimes we go to Chelsea and win. Sometimes we turn, Liverpool, we haven't done it this season. And nobody's done it this season because it's become so boring and so predictable. The gulf between all these sides, because of the money involved, is so huge that it's just become so boring. There's no surprises.
Was that not always the case, though? I mean, like, you can remember, like, Liverpool with Beardsley, Rush and Barnes winning the league on Grand National Day and things like that. It was... they've always wrapped up the league.
But QPR finished 4th that year or something, didn't they?
Yeah.
There's a lot more going on.
But in this period, we've had Leicester win a title. Things like that your little anomalies. But you like United for how many years? Run away with it, no competition. Arsenal, Chelsea came in with the money, and bring Mourinho in and run away with it for how long? And it's just the natural cycle of things, isn't it? Someone like if Newcastle are allowed to spend to the extent of their ownership's wealth, Newcastle will be the club that start running away with it. Excessively.
They can't, and this is the dilemma with all these regulations, isn't it? They would bring the regulations in for the sustainability of the game, and Newcastle are talking about having to sell people to comply with the thing when they could be building another super team. Whether we want Newcastle to build a super team out of Saudi money is another question altogether. But I mean, these are the kind of questions which I don't know. I agree with Justin in the sense that I found a lot of it boring. I mean, I watch Burnley every single week. I've watched every game this season. And I've got to be completely honest. I watched highlights and reels and stuff like that, but I haven't sat down and watched a lot of games involving, those ordinary games, those sort of, United versus Fulhams or Liverpool versus Bournemouth. I can't be bothered watching it. There's a lot of sport going on in America around me, and I'm watching MLS at night and stuff. So I've got some personal reasons not to be spending too much time watching football. But that never used to bother me in the past because I were really into it. And United did dominate, and you're right. And Fergie did go out and sign people like Sheringham and Berbatov and Cantona directly from his rivals, and that sort of stuff went on. It does feel more though now. It feels like everything's been turbocharged. Really, that stuff is. I mean, what more do Arsenal have to do? You used to be able to win the league with 84 points. What more do they have to do? But I mean, City fans get fed up of being lectured at about this kind of stuff, and I can understand why, because Pep's built a fabulous team and stuff, and it's not just the money, is it? I mean, they went and found Julian Alvarez, who's an exciting young player, great signing, but he's a backup.
Foden's been developed, hasn't he?
So it's not all that, and Pep's a brilliant coach, and they've been enjoyable to watch. But I don't know. I'll be glad to watch some Championship football.
When have City been enjoyable to watch?
Oh no, come on! They've played some fun.
No. The worst game this season I saw was Arsenal against City. It was so boring. It was just horrible. It wasn't proper football. And you say United haven't been entertaining. United have been a fantastic entertainment this season.
You never know what's going to happen.
You have no idea what's going to happen. That's what it should be like. You've sort of known what it's going to be like when we've turned up. We're going to play well for 15 minutes, concede a goal, and then collapse. But the unpredictability of it is what I like. That's what football's all about, isn't it? Well, like my famous phrase, we don't know what's going to happen. That's why we play the games. Well, that's not true anymore, is it? We do know what's going to happen. So we might as well not bother. We might as well just all go home and just give City the trophy every year.
I mean, fundamentally, Simon Cooper wrote a book with an economist about 10 years ago that looked at the correlation between wage bill and league position. Mm-hmm. And it's almost, a straight line, you know. Lyle Foster could have designed it. It's absolutely spot on. So, it is. If Burnley were spending Manchester City's money, Burnley would be top of the league.
Which we do in the Championship. That's where we are.
And next year we're the Man City.
Exactly.
And everyone's going to hate us, and we'll think it's great. Yeah.
And we get the irony of Blackburn fans moaning about us spending more than them to finish above them.
Yeah.
Blackburn's one you could bring up in that discussion about 1990s football and money, isn't it, really? Because I'm sure Shearer and Sutton went there because of their love for the Darwin end, But, anyway, well, we've gone wildly off a tangent there, but it is something that I've heard a lot from different fans, that feeling about it. I don't think it's just a sort of post-relegation hangover. I think there are a lot of issues there about the way football's going, and they're not unique to Burnley, but we seem to contribute to them as well. Let's finish on something slightly upbeat. What are you hoping to see on Sunday? What are we hoping? Really quick, round the table. What do you hope to see from the last game on Turf Moor this season? Let's start off with Chris.
I hope we smash Forest 6-0 and Luton smash Fulham 6-0 and Forest go down.
There you go.
I don't think we need to contribute any more to that.
No, I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah. J-Rod hat-trick.
J-Rod
And Marinakis running left, right and centre trying to get to the referee's room.
Justin, final word to you.
I can't add to that. That is exactly what I want to see. Although I'd prefer more than 6 if possible.
There we go. All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us and listening. As always, we'll be back with our last debrief of the season, looking back on whatever transpires against Nottingham Forest on Sunday. Enjoy the game on Sunday and speak to you on Monday. Up the Clarets.
Go!